Hello there, and welcome to this brief demo of the ArtWelder program shown in CorelDRAW X7. My name is Michael. I'm one of the product specialists here at LaserJumpStart, and I'll be showing you some of the menu options and features of this program. Now, one of the benefits of the ArtWelder program is that it doesn't require anything on the screen in order for it to generate what it will. I do have on the screen, though, a lot of different things to help illustrate what I'm going to be talking about. So let's dive straight in, and the first thing that I would have you look at is actually the cutting and engraving settings. We can go into these others here in a second. But first of all, if we click on here, we will see that we can change what the cut color is, as well as the engraving colors. Usually by standard it's red for your cut color, but you can change it to any of the other ones should you need to. Black for raster engraving, and blue for vector engraving. But obviously you can change that if you need to. These two settings here will make a little bit more sense as I explain them in the menus, but here you can decide on whether you want the engravings to have the text be filled or outlined. This one, the text is filled in. This one is just outlined. And then your pictures, if you do include them, if you want them to be filled in or outlined. And so this one's an outline, that one's filled in. So you can decide on whether you want it to, in general, run it that way. Besides the cutting and engraving settings, you do also have the units that you can choose. So if you would like to, you can change it into SI units, but we'll just leave them in inches for now. Now then, for the rest of this, the way that it separates the menus is into the interior options and then the exterior options. Now interior, that is your word welding options where it takes two words and puts them together, or your file, so an image that you have, some line art image, and then your exterior options are these ring-like objects, or where it has a border or it has some text going around a ring. And neither of these need to be used by themselves. They can be used by themselves or they can be used together. It just depends on what your project demands. And this program does have quite a bit of flexibility in that regard. So now that I've explained that, let's go into word welding and I'll show you a little bit more about what that part does. So in here, for all of these, I did use art as the first word and then welder as the second word, and it does work with these two words there. You can choose your font. All of these ones were in Arial, but then I did also change it to the copper font right there. You can decide on what font size you would like. These ones were in 72. This one was in 128 right there. And you can also bold, italicize, and fill it. These ones were just standard. However, on this one I did bold it and I also italicized it in addition to filling it in. You can tell that it's filled in, obviously, as it's blacked in. In addition to being able to choose the font size, you can also use size overrides. Now this is if you need a specific size. So in my example right here, I did decide it to have to be a width of 3 inches and then a height of 1.5. So as you can tell, it did distort the image just slightly, but if you need to, you can maintain the aspect ratio, and then it'll allow you to choose which one you want it to refer to, and that's what I did in this case, where I wanted it to be 3 inches and it maintained that same aspect ratio, but it made sure that it was 3 inches across, hence why those two are the same width. If you are going to use the size overrides, be sure to have that box selected or else it won't use them. Underneath the second word, we do have a couple of options here. If we do have the boxed option selected, we can choose corner roundness. So if we have boxed, it will put a box around the second word down here. The corner roundness is referring to how round those corners are. And this one right here is at 100%, whereas this one is at 0%, so you see how it has those right angles. If we don't have boxed selected, however, then we are given an option to offset them. At 0%, it will align them vertically, just like this one. However, if I do have it set to negative, it can go all the way to a negative 100. It will put it to the left. So it will put the second one, or the bottom one, to the left. At a positive 100%, it will put it all the way to the right. So this one's 100%, 0, and negative 100%. The connectivity is how connected the letters are to one another, the top to the bottom. This one, it is set to 0, and so if I zoom in and they are completely separated. On this one, however, it's set to 100% connectivity, and so you see how they overlap by quite a bit. The last option in here, we can set a contour size, and the contour is where it will add a line on the outside, and so it will make it larger. These ones were all set to 0, and this one was set to 0.02. And the only difference between these two is that this one has the contour size set. In addition to the word welder, we can also use a file for the interior. As I mentioned before, we can use an image. This was the original image, and as I mentioned before, this one was with the outlines, and this was with the filled options. And you can use these in the middle of your exterior options should you need to. So that leads us right into covering the exterior options. So if we make it an ornament, it will add the outside. And these are how we change what it looks like. The first thing is this image right here. We are able to decide on dimensions, dimensions of the ring and the hanger if we want to have a hanger. This option right here is determining on whether we get a hanger or not, and you can decide its size. So as you see right here, this one is just the 0.375 across and tall with a 0.125 size hole, and then this one was slightly different. I changed it to a 0.8 size across as well as a 0.4 on the hole. So you can change the size to whatever the size of the hanger to whatever you need it to, as well as the size of the ring itself. This one was 2 inches across with a 1-inch ring, whereas this one was 2 inches across with a 1/4 inch ring. So you can change that if you need to as well. The interior welding connectivity, this one is referring to how connected your interior is to your exterior. So if you don't have an interior, then this won't matter at all, like with these two. But if you do, this will determine on how much they overlap. This one was set to 10%, and this one was set to 90%. So you see how it overlaps just barely on this one, but it overlaps by quite a bit. In different options, sometimes it can overlap more. With these pumpkin ones, I noticed that when I had set it to 90%, it would completely cover up the inside hole. However, with the star, obviously you can see that it leaves quite a bit of a gap there. On the border, we can add a phrase if we would like to on the top and the bottom. So this is the top phrase and then a bottom phrase. We can change the size from here as well. This one does have a size of 25%, whereas this one is a size of 75%, so you do have quite a bit of variability on the size of the font that you would like. In addition to changing the size, we can change what font it is. This is one of our ones that we have here, and it is I believe it is called Arabia, if I'm not mistaken. It's kind of a fun font right there. And we can also, as before, bold or italicize those letters. I'll cover this in a second. The last option I want to cover here is the leave outline. The difference in this one is with all of our options, we've been talking about how they overlap a lot. As you can see on this one, you can tell where the star is by it still having the outline even where they overlap. If you don't have this selected, it will simply merge them, and so it will remove where they overlap. In some cases you might want that, some cases you might not. But our last option here is the border settings, and these are referring to all of these special borders. If you don't have either of these selected, so if I don't have this ticked or this ticked, it will just leave it as a smooth circle. But if you do have these selected, you can change the outside and the inside border. And much like the interior and exterior options, you don't need to have both of them selected. You can have both of them selected, one of them selected, or neither of them selected. It just depends on what you want. So in this case, on the outside, I do have the dog one option. We do have a couple that already come preloaded. So you have a dog head right there. And then on this one, it was the wave on the inside. So you can decide on what you would want. You can even load in your own as both of the on either the inside or the outside. There's some more information on how to make those in your manual, but the general information is just that it needs to be one continuous line that doesn't overlap itself, so that it doesn't cut itself when you're using it. The last option here is the side count, and this is referring to how many times this item is repeated. So to illustrate that, on this ring, I did have it on the outside, the dog head, and I had it repeat 16 times, so the side count was 16. And then on this same ring, everything else was the same. The only thing I changed was I had the side count set to 32, and so you see that it repeated it 32 times rather than just 16 there. On this one, I believe I set it to 25. But in either case, with these settings, you're able to make your own awards, signage, logos, nameplates, badges, cup coasters, etc. I mean, the limits are really your imagination. Alright, and that was a brief demo of the ArtWelder Program menus. It was a little bit longer just because of how many there were, but in either case, thank you for watching our video. I hope that it helped you out. Check out our website to see all of our programs that we have available, as well as materials that we have made specifically for lasers. If you would like a one-on-one training session with one of our product specialists, we can provide those services as well for a nominal fee. Check out the video on your left if you'd like to see my video on the ArtWelder program in the Idea Showcase, or the video on your right if you'd like to see more about some of our other programs. This has been LaserJumpStart, helping you make more with your laser.